Welcome back to part 2 of our DIY Adventure Power Box build. Again, I mentioned last one, looking at about maybe 4 or 5 parts of the series of this video. Today, I'm just going to do a real quick walkthrough of some of the tools that I used. They come in handy. Some that you're definitely going to need in order to do this, because you're going to be doing some wiring, so you're going to need to be able to cut wire, strip wire, and then crimp your terminal ends onto your wires. This particular tool here came with this die, which is the blue and red, and I had to buy the blue and yellow separate because I was using the bigger terminal ends. But you can get them, buy the tool once and then buy the die if you need them, or with all that stuff you can use one of these. Things have been around forever. They got cutters, they got crimpers, they got it all. So if you have one of these laying around, you can use this for everything that these will do. It just makes it easier and faster because we're going to be doing a lot of it, and I'm used to these now. But by no means do you need to have all these tools. These are a lot of tools I have laying around doing other things with, but you can get away with these tools right here in this. The only thing that it won't do is this will not crimp the 90-degree terminals that I use. And the reason why I use the 90-degree terminals is because I don't use the long ones that stand straight up and down. I don't have any here in front of me. The reason why I don't do them is because of the height of my panel to the top of my box. They stand up too far, and I don't want to bang in and mashing the wire and all that kind of stuff, so I just don't use those. But we'll get into all that stuff later on. So anyway, wire stripper, wire cutter, wire crimper for your terminals. You can use all those. I would suggest a pair of needle nose pliers. And then this little handy thing right here is another crimper, but it's for these little that box is just difficult to get open. It's for these little round terminals. And so, they come in different sizes, as you can see here in the box. What I use those for, and I wasn't using them before in my build, and I started looking around, and they use those things in a lot of audio components and everything. And so what I did is I incorporated them into my box build when I'm attaching my wires to my solar charge controller. Okay, you can see that here. I don't know if you can see them, but I got black and grays, but because of the different gauge of wire. But what that does is you take the little round terminal, you put it in this little tool, and you crimp it just like anything else. When you crimp it, it makes it square, or I guess square is the best way to put it. So when you put it into whatever socket you're going to do and you screw down on it, the wire is in there. Your copper wire is already in there. It's crimped by this, and all you're doing is tightening that screw down onto that crimp. It's a lot easier. It's a lot faster to connect. You're not plugging wires in and wires fraying out and one sticking in the finger and stuff going every which way. So I just decided to go this route, and I bought this set off Amazon. It's cheap. It's probably one of the cheapest ones out there. I think it was like $20 for the whole set. And that's the tool, the carrying case, and all these 200 pieces, or there's, I don't know, 800,000-900,000 pieces in here, whatever it is, and it was like $20. So I would strongly suggest getting that. When we're drilling holes inside the box on our plate, I would just use a step bit. For me, it's just a lot easier. You're going to need a drill of some sort, obviously. And all you do, put that in there, put your step bit in there, tighten it up, and now you can drill any size hole that you need in a box. There's one that's a little bit bigger, but you can get a lot of it out with this, and then just cut around with a bandsaw or a little coping saw. But I strongly suggest using one of those. It makes drilling the holes cleaner, neater, easier. There's less cleanup, there's less mess. They would just work great. So I would strongly suggest using one of those. So you're going to need a drill of some sort, power source of some sort, and a step bit. You're going to need a couple of sockets. This is, depending on the hardware that you use, this is a 9mm, and I can't see it because of the light in here. Size is that? That's an 8. So I got a 9 and an 8mm, or you can use these, whichever one you use or you choose to use. So 9mm, 8mm, same thing. I like these because they're longer; they can go down in there, and these are for the shorter bolts or screws that I use. You're going to need a piece of wood, obviously, for your panel, and then some sort of way to measure to get your holes lined up. You want to make it as symmetrical as possible, or if you don't, you don't. You just throw holes in a piece of wood wherever you want them. Entirely up to you. But you're going to need some way to measure them. I use this little paper ruler right here because I can take it and I can get right on the edge of something. I can pull it across taut and I know that I'm right on it. Instead of trying to sit there and do this thing and trying to figure out if I'm on the edge or whatever, I'm trying to figure out what I got, I can just take that and boom, I've got it marked right there. So it just works in some cases, not every case. So you're gonna need some way to measure stuff. Obviously, you're gonna need a pencil of some sort, marker, whatever. So you draw your layout of your components on your box and on the wood plate. You're going to need some way to tighten down screws. So if you got this on one side of the nut and this on the other side of the screw, this is a ratcheting screwdriver with multiple blades in there. It's from Milwaukee, and so you can just sit there and do that and tighten your screws and your nuts up. So that's one use for that. Or you could also get one of these. That's the DeWalt power drive, what do they call it? But anyway, it's interchangeable. It's got a screw driver on one side. Take that out, flip it around, and now you've got a drill bit for a pilot hole. And you also have on here, I can't remember the term off the top of my head, I'm having a brain fart, but so anyway, you drill down a little bit so you can set your flathead screw down in there. So you can also use that. You're going to need some sort of, I don't know, way to clean up the plastic when you drill your holes. There's going to be little curlicues coming off of it. You can either use some sort of Xacto knife, or what I use is a swizzle stick, what I call a swizzle stick. And basically you just ream the hole, you put it in the hole, and you ream it around, and this thing spins, this blade spins around. So as you're going through your hole, it cleans up all the little burrs and all that stuff and makes a nice round hole. So there's that. You can also use a tape measure if you want to. I don't have all the components up here, but I do have some stuff here that can kind of tell you what we're going to need. So you're going to need wire, obviously. This is a 12-volt system, so anything between 18, 16, maybe 14 is really all you need. This depends on your personal preference. You're going to need an inline fuse. This is imperative because this is going to go from your battery, straight from your battery into to your master switch, so that way everything's fuse protected. You're going to need terminals, flag terminals, red and blue, and some yellow. Again, I prefer the flag terminals over the long straight ones. Just makes it, for me, makes a neater presentation. You don't use as much wire because you're not going long loops. You're going more in line. I got on here a piece of heat shrink. So I got a little piece of heat shrink on there. You're going to need some heat shrink. I got this off of Amazon. As you can see, it's multicolored, multi-sizes. And I'll have links and descriptions and all that stuff in the video. So so you're going to need some flag terminals, blue, red, and yellow, because they're different size wires. And you're going to have some 2 and 3 wire connections, and you're going to have some single wire connections. So wire, 14, 16, or 18 gauge. I have found that I've got like 4 or 5 of these boxes, and they all work fine. I don't have any loss. I mean, they're short. They're such short runs of wire. You shouldn't have much loss, if any, anyway. That's not like you're going feet, right? You know, going, I don't know, 18 inches, maybe the longest, whatever. So anyway, you're gonna need wire. We covered that. You're going to need an SAE port, like we discussed. We mount that, and that's how we run our solar. And then you're going to need, well, actually on this, with this port, you're going to cut this tip off. So if you wanted to, you just make sure you got enough room here to connect to your solar charge controller, and you can cut that off, and then you can use that when you on your solar panels. When you go plug your solar panel in, it'll plug into here, which I just found is the easiest way. Or if you don't do that, then you're going to need an SE plug. So just make sure when you wire them up that anytime you wire it up, you're going red to red and black to black. So if you need to switch it around, I mean, there's a coating on this one, but obviously, but if you're going to switch that around, or you go to wire it and it plugs in, let's say it plugs in this way, for whatever reason, your black wire would be connected to your red wire, so you don't want that. So what you want to do, and most of them are set up that way, it depends on which ones work, you can plug that in there, and now you've got black to black and red to red, and that's what you want. So that's pretty much it for the tools. We talked about some of the other materials we got here. We got our terminals, we got the flag terminals we're going to need, we got our heat shrink. Obviously you're using heat shrink, you're going to need a heat gun, obviously you're going to need a box. If you build this exact one, you're also going to need an Atwood port, power port, and you're going to need some red, green, and white lights, and you can use all around. You can use these kayak lights, whatever your choice is. You can get this flasher if you want to put a flasher on your box. All of this comes out of Amazon, or did. Now, when I put the links and stuff out there, you go out there and look, and you say, okay, how much does it cost you to build this box? With the modifications that I made, I did put a little bit extra money in it, but it's under $200. And I have a 10-year, at least a 10-year power supply right here. The batteries that I'm using are lithium iron phosphate batteries. This is a 12 volt, 12 amp hour battery. And again, I can run them single or I can run them parallel. If I run it parallel, it'll still be a 12 volt system, but you'll up your amp hours or double your amp hours to 24 amp hours. And so that's the batteries, and these things have, I don't know, 4 to 6,000 charge cycles. At some point in time, they will start to degrade, but even when they start to degrade, you're still going to be able to use them to get some power out of them, and that's going to be, you know, another year or so or whatever before they completely die. So you do the math: 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 charge cycles, and there's only 365 days in a year. So in order for you to completely discharge and recharge that battery every day, you're looking at 8, 9, 10 years of battery life. These batteries, I bought them before the inflation thing kicked in, so they were cheaper back then, and I got them for I think around $46, $47 each off Amazon. They cost more than that now, but I think they're up around 65 now. But again, you know, Biden inflation and all this stuff going on, and I mean, it's just one of those things you just got to deal with. So if you decide to build the box now and you get all the stuff here, it's going to run you more than $200. That's only because of inflation. This one actually runs me about this particular one ran me about 100, I'd say about 175. And then when I added the port and I got an additional battery, that bumped it up a little bit. But so anyway, all that said, you're looking around $200, and you're going to need, and what I use is a 25 watt solar panel. This solar panel I got off Amazon for like $37, I think it was, if I remember correctly. And I built a little kickstand for it because it does not come with a stand, but I'll describe the kickstand build as well. But as you can see here, when I was talking about the SAE port, so there it is. I put the terminals, the bigger terminals, the yellow ones on there because of the wire size, and then I put shrink wrap over them to protect them, and then that's the SAE port plug, right? Here's a little kickstand that I made, and I'll go over the details more about the parts and pieces for this thing. But you can get any angle on this thing. It lays all the way over to 3 degrees to 3 degrees. So anywhere in North America, you'll be able to get the right sun angle for your setup whenever you need it. So that said, the solar panel is just a 25-watt solar panel. And again, it was like 35, 36 bucks off Amazon, whatever it was. But again, that was a while back. So if you're looking at getting all this stuff now, it's going to cost you more, unfortunately. But I will leave the links and descriptions and everything that I have here, everything that I use. I think that about covers it for the tools and materials, guys. Well, I guess the only other thing we would talk about would be your components in here. So if you wanna get a glow cup, or what they call a glory hole, you can head on over to Ice Hole Power. Check out Jeremy's YouTube channel, iceholepower.com. They have all this stuff for sale. They have rocker switches, panels, plugs, you name it, they got it. They sell little electrical kits that even if you don't buy a box, or you can buy a box and a kit from him and build it off his kit, or you can build it yourself, however you want to do it. He sells all the stuff you need. The only other thing you're going to need is hardware, depending on how thick stuff is, and you don't want big long screws hanging out. So, but other than that, there are some nylon washers that I use down here, and I shrink wrapped, and I'll show you how I build those. And that's basically the stage stands for our panel. Other than that, it depends on what component you want. You want a 3.0 quick charge USB port. You want some rocker switches. You can get them square, round. These are the cheap round ones. They last forever. I haven't had any problems with them. And then you're going to need a solar charge controller, and that will be based on the watts that you're using. So you don't need a super humongous, 50,000 watt solar charge controller if you're going to run a 12 volt system and maybe 25 watts. So just bear that in mind. These are like 14, 15 bucks on Amazon. They're cheap as dirt. Somebody buys them for like $3 a mass and puts them out there and sells them for 15. That's people these days. But this little thing for 14, I think it was 15 bucks, I think it was, and some change. This does everything that I need it to do. And this is, and again, an important thing here, because I'm using lithium iron phosphate batteries, your solar charge controller needs to be compatible with that. If you buy a solar charge controller that is only compatible with lead acid or AGM batteries, it won't recognize your lithium iron phosphate. So depending on whatever battery type, just make sure that you look on there, read the description, and get the one for whatever battery type that you're going to use. This one does it all. There are some that only do certain AGM, and they don't do lithium. This one came out, it was relatively new, and I just happened to be on Amazon, I was looking at some stuff, and I saw that one pop up, and it did them all. So that's why I got it. But again, I'll have the links and descriptions and everything you need. Other than that, guys, wire gland, we talked about wire, all that stuff. You're going to need a piece of wood. This is 1/4-inch maple ply. So it's you can get a Home Depot and get a sheet of it for like $5, and you get like I don't know. There's a bunch of these come out of one sheet, but I'll give you all the dimensions and all that stuff later. But anyway, for right now, guys, that's part 2 of components. The box obviously is the MTM case guard. We covered the battery. We covered some tools, and that's pretty much it for part 2. I'm looking forward to doing part 3 because we're going to actually start looking into the building process and actually starting doing stuff. So drilling holes, marking them, putting them where you want it, figuring out what we want to do in our layout of our panel, mounting the hole for our ports, our lights, our SAE port, all that kind of stuff. So I don't have another box for a build right now, and because the price of these have gone up as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to be taking this one apart, and then I'll show you what I did, and then we'll put it back together, basically rebuilding this box. That's how the video is going to work, and it's only because I don't have another box available. The boxes I had, they've already been cleaned, so I'm just waiting for people to come by and pick them up. But and they're already built for them. So Anyway, that's it in a nutshell, guys. We will dismantle and then rebuild. So, as always, I thank you for watching. You'll see the banner come up with some like, share, subscribe, comments. And as always, God bless you. We thank you for stopping by. Anything that you can do to help the channel out with liking and subscribing and all that kind of stuff, we would truly appreciate it. See you in the next one. Part 3, DIY, Adventure Power Box. T3, out.